They told her she would never walk again, that her life as she knew it was over. But no one warned the mountain. This is not a story of survival. It's a story of defiance, of grit, of a woman who stared down 12,000 feet of stone and snow without a pair of legs and climbed anyway. Her name is Amira, and if you think disability means defeat, she's here to change your mind. And what happened up there would be talked about by climbers and kids in classrooms for years. But to understand that moment, you have to start with the crash. Before the mountain, there was the crash. Amira was 27, a rising track athlete in Tunisia, with a heart for marathons and lungs made for the long run. She had just won her third regional race and coached local school kids every Saturday. She was known for her laughter, her discipline, and her unmatched finish line sprints. Scouts were already eyeing her for national competition. She was just beginning. Then came one rainy morning on the coastal highway. She was driving back from a training camp, singing to the radio, her track shoes in the passenger seat. A cargo truck ran a red light at full speed. The impact twisted metal like ribbon. Her car spun into a roadside barrier. The world blurred, then blacked out. She was trapped in the wreckage for nearly 40 minutes. Rescue workers cut her out. She flatlined twice on the way to the hospital. When she woke up 3 days later, her father was at her bedside, holding her hand like it might break. The doctor couldn't meet her eyes, her legs were gone. Amira remembers the silence, the weight of it, not the pain, the absence, the space where movement used to be. She didn't cry, not at first. She spent 17 days in intensive care, another 2 months in a hospital ward. Through it all, she said almost nothing. Her father sat beside her for hours, holding her hand like it might break. Her mother washed her hair and smiled through unspoken grief. But Amira stayed quiet, not strong, just quiet. Then one evening, when her father stepped out to take a phone call, something broke. She buried her face in the hospital pillow and screamed, not from pain, from the silence, from everything she had swallowed. She screamed until her throat gave out. Her father would sit with her for hours, holding her hand, but saying nothing. Her mother cleaned her hair and never once let her see her cry. Amira grieved, not just her legs, but the version of herself she thought she'd lost. The woman who ran by the sea at dawn, the woman who flew, the woman whose body was once a finely tuned machine. She thought she'd never feel the wind on her face at that speed again. But the mountain had a different plan. 2 months into rehab, the days were long and often silent. Amira spent hours staring at the ceiling, her body sore from inactivity and her spirit heavier still. The hospital halls were filled with quiet echoes of beeping monitors, muffled footsteps, and her own swirling thoughts. Then, one afternoon, a volunteer named Lena wheeled in a laptop on a cart. Thought this might help, she said, placing headphones gently over Amira's ears. The video began. It showed a double amputee soldier climbing stairs. Each movement looked agonizing. His prosthetics clicked against metal steps. Sweat dripped from his brow, but he kept going, and when he reached the top, he raised his arms and smiled. Something inside Amira flickered. Not hope, not yet, just a question. If he could do that, what could I do? Later that night, she watched the video again, and again. She didn't sleep. Her arms ached from propping up the screen, but she barely noticed. She imagined the weight of gravity pushing against her body, not as a threat, but as a challenge. The next morning, she asked her physical therapist if she could try the parallel bars again. They looked at her like she was joking, but she wasn't. She wasn't just watching him climb, she was watching herself begin to wake up. And what she would do next would leave even her doctor speechless. Her rehab team called her the Storm in Sneakers, not because she was fast, she wasn't anymore, but because every day she hit rehab like a thunderclap. She arrived early, stayed late, argued with her physical therapists, challenged the limits of every exercise, and when her body gave out, her voice didn't. She cursed, she laughed, she kept moving. Every day she trained, first to sit up without help, then to balance, to crawl, to stand, to fall, and to fall again. She learned to use prosthetics, but hated how clunky they felt. They slowed her down. They didn't feel like hers, so she started training with her arms instead. Push-ups, pull-ups, rope climbs. One day, her best friend Sammy visited and built her a wooden grip tool so she could simulate rock climbing against her hospital bed. She taped motivational quotes to the walls, drew a mountain on her whiteboard, and marked off her recovery milestones like checkpoints on a trail. One night, while scrolling through photos, she saw an image of Jebel Tobkal, North Africa's tallest peak. The caption read, "The summit of struggle and reward." Something clicked. If I can't walk it, I'll climb it. When she told her rehab team, they thought she was joking. "You mean metaphorically?" one asked. She shook her head. "I mean with my arms." There were long pauses, concerned looks, gentle suggestions to focus on achievable goals first. But she didn't flinch. She didn't tell everyone, just those she needed. She just started training harder. She didn't know how. She didn't know if it was even possible. But she knew one thing. She'd rather fail trying to climb a mountain than spend a lifetime wondering. She assembled a small team, a climbing coach, a medic, her best friend Sammy. They trained together for weeks, adjusting gear, building upper body endurance, and running emergency drills. At dawn on a January morning, they began the ascent. Amira used custom hand crutches reinforced with titanium, padded gloves, and modified elbow sleeves stitched from mountain-grade materials. Her movements were slow but precise. Every pull forward was a battle of gravity and grit. What no one on the team expected, what no one could prepare for, was how far her mind would go when her body gave out. The terrain was brutal. Loose shale shredded her gloves. Ice-covered rocks tested every ounce of balance she had. The cold bit into her joints. The wind felt like it was trying to shove her back down. Her arms began to blister on the second day. By day 3, the cramps were so severe she started wrapping duct tape around her forearms to stabilize them. She couldn't grip a water bottle without help. She fell over and over, sliding several feet each time. At one point, the medic suggested turning back. Her coach hesitated. Even Sammy looked afraid. Amira didn't argue. She just looked up at the next ridge and said, "Give me 10 minutes." 10 minutes turned into another hour. Another hour became another day. The nights were worse. Cold winds howled through their tents. One night, she hallucinated that she was running again, then woke up sobbing. Sammy played her old running playlist, the same one she trained to before the crash. The music was distorted in the thin air, but the memory was enough. They passed a memorial for a climber who didn't make it. The guide looked uneasy, but Amira said nothing. She just kept going. At 11,000 feet, snow began to fall. Visibility dropped. The wind screamed like a warning. Her body begged her to stop. but her mind was already standing at the summit. On the seventh morning, she pulled herself over the final ridge, 12,198 feet above sea level. She didn't just reach the summit, she conquered everything that had tried to keep her from it. She screamed, laughed, wept, and planted her country's flag. Then she turned to Sammy and said, "Tell them not to pity me. Tell them to follow me." When asked why she did it, she said, "Because they told me I couldn't. Because I believed them once. But never again." Amira now speaks around the world, trains adaptive athletes, and helps design climbing tools for disabled adventurers. Her journey didn't stop at the summit, it began there. She became a symbol of resilience, not because she overcame disability, but because she redefined it. She works with young girls in rural villages who've never seen someone like them climb anything but stairs. She speaks in classrooms where students are still learning to value difference, and in boardrooms where accessibility is still an afterthought. She returned home to a hero's welcome, but the moment that stuck with her was quieter. A girl in the crowd on crutches holding a sign that said, "Now I believe in me too." And at that moment, Amira realized something. The summit wasn't just a place on a map. It was a ripple, a story echoing in someone else's heart. Her story is not about legs. It's about not letting the world measure your ability by what you've lost. It's about rising, not to be seen, but so others can see what's possible. Amira didn't climb to prove she was strong. She climbed to remember she always had been. She didn't do it for medals. She didn't do it for headlines. She did it because there was a moment, a quiet, terrible moment, when she believed her story was over. But she kept turning the page. And what she found on the other side wasn't just strength, it was purpose. So the next time someone tells you what you can't do, when the voice in your own head whispers, "Maybe they're right," remember the woman with no legs who still reached the top. And remember, your summit might look different. It might not be a mountain, but it will be just as high. And you were made to climb. If this story moved you, imagine how many others it could reach. Subscribe to Able in every way for more stories of strength, spirit, and the power to overcome. And if you believe the world needs to hear stories like Amira's, share this video. You never know who needs it today.